Hey guys, welcome to the Business Mind Show. My name is Christopher Shaw. I'm your host, founder of Meek Mind Digital Branding Agency. And today's show is all about entrepreneurship and having a vision quest. We're going to give you 5 tips to kind of keep in the forefront of your mind when you're going through your entrepreneur journey. As always, we have a real world entrepreneur on our show. And before we get started, today's show is sponsored by the Ellie app. It's a platform that allows you to build your own custom business app. And these are iOS native apps too. So you get push notifications, you can sell your product subscriptions, place articles, have people subscribe. Anything you want to do, this platform can do it for your business app at an affordable price. Check it out, theellieapp.com. That's TheELIAPP.com. All right, now we got that out of the way. You guys are probably wondering who this spry young man is sitting next to me. This is actually the CEO of MSC Design, Matthew Crittenden. I was close. Crittenden. I'm sorry, I didn't want to butcher it. So, tell us a little bit about you before we get started.
Well, I'm an architect. My company specializes mainly in restaurant design. We create unique experiential environments.
Beautiful.
Develop an architectural brand image for our client space that creates a unique experience for their customer and hopefully keeps them coming back and keeps more business coming to us.
Now, if you're in Dallas, you guys know about Glorious, right? This is the man right here. And he tell us a little bit about your relationship with Glorious.
Well, Glorious Latin Cuisine is actually our first client.
Oh, wow.
We began working with them 16 years ago. We have designed 18 of their 20 existing restaurants, and we're working on numbers 21 and 22 right now. We do have other clients as well, but they are our claim to fame, so to speak, and no problem. That's what everybody knows our work from, because Glorious is great, and we're proud to be a part of developing their brand and their architecture and their interiors.
Man, and guys, they're beautiful, high-end. Like I said, Mexican cuisine. It's really great, especially if you're in Dallas. You guys know about them. We're supposed to go right into the topic, but you said something very interesting. That you said they were your first client. How do you get that big of a client on your first client?
Well, they weren't that big when we started.
Okay.
They had 5 locations. I had been working in architecture and interiors for I guess about 8 years at that time. I had started out with a small firm after college that did restaurant work, learned the nuts and bolts of restaurants.
Okay.
I went on in the process of getting my architecture license to work on bigger projects, hotels, senior living, some luxury condo developments, and with the thought that to be a well-rounded architect, I needed to get some experience doing some bigger projects. And I kind of missed doing the smaller work. I was a regular, loyal customer of Gloria's. Back before having kids, we'd go there for brunch on Sundays, happy hour, meet friends. We would have dinner there once a week, so we'd be there 2-3 times a week, and got to know the manager, and happened to be there one day with a friend of my wife's who hadn't been there with us in a while. And one of the great things about Gloria's is that they have excellent customer service.
Yes.
Their managers know the regulars. They talk to everybody, and he recognized my wife's friend who hadn't been there in a while. Came over to chat us up, and in that course, that conversation mentioned they were doing a new restaurant in Colleyville. I happened to mention that I was an architect and I had restaurant experience. Gave him the card for the company I was working for at that time, and thinking I would bring that project in and raise my stock in that company. It was too small and they weren't interested in it, suggested that I moonlight it, and I did. So I did that for a year or two, and with 2 or 3 projects under my belt, started to get too busy to do both my full-time day job and the side work. So I decided to step out on my own, and that was 14 years ago.
Now that's very interesting. You need to be on another show too. We were talking about opportunities, how on this show we're not necessarily telling you to quit your day job to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
We want to give you tips to where you can slowly wing off of it. And your story is similar to mine. But you said something interesting too, which you keep saying, is that your boss at the time told you to go ahead and take the project?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, wow.
As I mentioned, I was working for a larger firm that did mostly hotels, senior living, and I was interested in having a small project studio. I'd seen us go through some rounds of layoffs where we had staffed up for big projects, and then things would, funding wouldn't come through, the project would go away, and we would, end up having to lay people off. Not me personally, because I wasn't in that role of hiring and firing at that time, but I saw good people who I enjoyed working with, have to go, and I felt like if we had a steady flow of smaller projects, we could fill the gaps, keep 2 or 3 of those people busy on a smaller project while we're waiting for the next big one to come through. And and they did not agree philosophically with that, and it worked to my advantage because it gave me a stepping stone to where I am today.
Not to keep going, but you like we always talk about in this show that entrepreneurs, one thing that we always do is we find a solution to a problem, right? And that's kind of like your entrepreneur gears start to say, hey, I saw these people laid off, meaning that maybe stuff is happening and that we need to be bringing in other little jobs so we can supplement this. And it was the kind of problem that you kind of brought to your management, and then it turned into your entrepreneurial endeavor, huh? And then you say those are little? I didn't think.
Well, in the context of the architecture world, a 2,000 to 10,000 square foot restaurant is small by comparison to, say, an 800-room hotel, or a 250 unit senior living, independent living apartment complex, or assisted living facility, or something of that nature. So. And a lot of this work is tenant finish out work versus ground up buildings. So most of the work we were doing at that time was ground up construction, and of
everything.
Course, the restaurant work that we were doing for Gloria's was tenant finish out work in retail centers, and we have done some freestanding buildings for them, and actually number 21 is going to be the first freestanding ground-up Gloria's that they've built. Everything else has been in a building that they've either acquired or a center that's owned by someone else, and they lease the space. But
that's interesting, man. I mean, I used to draw a little bit, but man, what you guys do, I mean, your vision, I mean, we've seen it. I showed my wife, showed everybody. Your work is wonderful. Sorry, I had to kind of tidbit on that, but all right. So we'll get into these 5 tidbits that we want to give you guys, and it's like I said, entrepreneurship is a quest, it's a journey. It's not. Don't have no quick fix, long term. And like you said, 16 years. You've been doing this longer than I have. So the first one we want to go over is finances, guys. I know you want to be, whatever your profession is, you want to keep that and you want to master your profession, but you have to keep certain things in mind, like finances. And you should always put together some type of financial plan as far as what your budget is going to be, your overhead. And of course you guys know this, but I want to just drill it in your head how important it is when that cash flow problem comes in, because a lot of people, like you was talking about, have cash flow problems where you can't pay certain people. But if you budget for more than what you're expecting and keep your expenses down, especially in the beginning, then your startup will have a lot more chances to have longevity. Now, you've read the article. What did you think about what do you have to add as far as the financial advice for?
Well, I think your comments on frugality are very on point.
Okay.
that I was very frugal, started with low overhead, worked out of the house initially.
Yes, me too.
It was a home-based business for several years before moving into commercial office space and staffing up. Even when working from home, my labor force began growing by using independent third-party contractors
Yes.
who worked remotely. So didn't have to have the expense of office and computers. They had their own software, their own computers, and things like that. So that helped us keep costs down in the beginning. That's changed a little since taking on the. But one other thing we did early on was to put a line of credit in place so that there was always a resource available for when those cash flow problems came along. And I'm proud to say we've only dipped into it once. Only to a very limited degree in 14 years since starting the business. Those first 2 years, MSC Design didn't actually exist in its current form. But we, as soon as establishing the business, one of the first things I did was put that line of credit in place, and it's still there if we need it. But we've been very careful, keeping an eye on expenses, growing in a very controlled manner, so as not to overextend ourselves or overcommit, and still use a combination of contract labor and full-time and part-time employees to get the jobs done.
Oh man, that's so interesting, because I was more of the total opposite when I just started. I was all about no credit, no nothing. I want to pay everything cash. And I can honestly say, if I went back and get it again, I would probably do what you did.
Well, I didn't use the line of credit.
I know,
I
but
just made
it was
sure
there.
We had it while we had the credit rating to get it.
Well, yeah, see, that's right. See, I think maybe the phobia about having credit and being in, the way I was brought up, being in somebody's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, you owe this, but it's not really yours, and you're going to have to pay it back. But now that I've been in business a while, I have to realize that that is a very essential part, especially as part of growth and peace of mind. Like you said, you didn't even use it, but it gave you some sort of peace of mind. If you need it, it was there. Yeah. And then also the responsibility factor to have a high enough credit score to get it. So I commend you. Like, I was totally different, but if I had to go again, I would definitely go that route. I was all about paying everything for cash. But we want to just keep those finances in the top of your mind, and not just how much you're bringing in versus how much you're paying out. I mean, like you said, credit, lines of credit. That's another way. We actually have a guest last time on the show, Bobo, who can help you out with that. Now, this next one tidbit is actually on the website. I put time management. I put it twice, but it's time management. And entrepreneurs, from a time management standpoint, when I first started out, this was not one of my priorities, because I was so focused on doing high quality, good work that I wasn't maximizing those hours that I was paying. I would go over hours on a project, and then the money be gone, and now you're frustrated, and you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
and now it's like, okay, now what I do? And then you don't even want to finish the project half the time. Just being real, but you do finish the project because integrity. But
absolutely.
But it just weighs down on you a lot, and so time management, I want to really keep that in the forefront of your mind, because time is the most valuable asset. Period. You can never get it back. You can always make more money. You can never get time back. So it's very, very valuable. What kind of time, you got a time management tidbit?
Well, we track our time on every project so that we know how many hours we're putting in. We log our time. We budget time according to, when we're establishing a fee for a project, we estimate how many hours it's going to take to get that project done. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the main criteria in setting the fee. We determine which staff are going on to be committed to the project, and budget how many hours for each of each of the people involved in the project, and use that as kind of a baseline for the fee. Knowing what deliverables we have to produce, what drawings, what sort of code due diligence and research we have to do, and then we track that, and as you say, some projects you run over on time, but hopefully the profit margin you build in gives you a little bit of a cushion, so you're not working for a diminishing return. Well, you end up working for a diminishing return, but not a negative return. You know, if you build that in properly, and you know, on some projects we hit it pretty close to the mark and come in at our projections. On other projects, we end up cutting into that profit margin a little bit, but for the most part, we've come out ahead. And 14 years in business, I think, proves some.
Oh yeah,
we're doing it. We're doing something right.
Doing a lot right.
So.
And as far as going over, those are actually learning chances to learn, right? Those are things you don't take it as something negative and it holds you down. You take it from a standpoint. Okay, hey, we overestimated this time, and we're going to learn. And you over time just knock it out.
Certainly we. Sometimes it's a result of the learning curve with a new client and the level of communication and expectations that they have that's different from other people you've worked with in the past, and they might be a little more demanding of your time, and that eats up a little bit of extra time on the project. Sometimes if you bring a new team member on, there's a ramp up curve for them, then it requires them to take a little more time to learn your processes and your systems and or the project concept and the standards and details. So those are things that we try to keep an eye on, and if and when we do run over, we try to look back and analyze that data and see where was it that we went over. We don't try to spend too much time on that because that's time that's not billable, and but we do try to learn from everything we do and get better every project.
Oh, that's from a real world entrepreneur, folks. You said, I know this one isn't in the list. I always add stuff. But you said something very good too. Expectations. When you're starting out your business, that's one of the things you really want to be able to. I don't want to, for lack of a better word, control, but you have to be super clear, and that helps you build a solid foundation for your relationship with your client. Because we've all heard that whatever the client's always right. If the expectations are mixed, because if you don't set expectations, you leave the door wide open for whatever they really want. And most people are believing the client is always right. So I just wanted to add that in there that I'm so important. He talked about expectations, people. You want to keep that in the forefront of your mind as far as setting expectations super clear, because that'll help you with time. It'll help you with your finances. It'll help you with damn near every part of your business, especially if you sell a particular service where it's more hands-on and you have to deal with the client. I just wanted to add that in there. You're dropping a lot of gems that I just want to make sure that people they grasp.
Well, my best advice there is that it's better to under promise and over deliver than to do it the other way around.
Okay,
so.
There we go. Over promise.
No. That's what you're joking. That's what you're doing.
I'm just joking. But yes, those are true words. Never spoke. Now the next one is being the no. Now when we're talking about this, you need to know your industry. You need to know. Always be learning. Just because you may be a master plumber 30, 40 years, everything is always changing, always evolving. So one of the things that we want you to realize, always never stop learning. It's about learning. It's a journey. It's a quest. What do you have to say about that, Matt?
Oh, absolutely. The building codes, technical information like that are changing. The process of submitting plans to the building departments in the cities, but in the restaurant industry in particular, and with the social media world these days, and having to step up our marketing on social media, as well as what our clients are doing to engage their customers through social media. The the restaurant industry is using that a lot now, and people, when they go out to eat, they take pictures of their food.
Yes.
They take pictures of themselves and their friends in front of the design features in the restaurants.
Yes.
And they post them on and hashtag the restaurant.
Yeah.
So we have to create those opportunities now in our and
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about
factor
that.
those into the design as well as up our game with our competition, who's putting a lot of their design work out there on social media, and that's one of the biggest challenges we've had being a small firm and keep generating content and keeping that current, and because we've got a lot of old projects we can go back and post, but people want to see new stuff, but then again, if they haven't seen the old stuff,
they don't know.
it might still be worth putting out there. So that's something that even though it's been around a little while, I would say really has come into its own in the last couple of years.
Yes, I agree.
And has been more of a requirement, where it's what I would liken it to what your website was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you needed your website to validate your business. That when you handed someone your business card, it needed to have your web address on there so they could go look at your website, see that you had completed projects, learn a little bit about your company, and feel good about doing business with you. Now, the website is essential. You can't be a business without a website, and the social media is almost what validates you.
Oh, wow.
And I think, and you have to kind of stay on top of that. And in all honesty, we need to do a much better job than we're doing right now with that. But it's the balance. You know, we take care of the clients and their projects first, and put our internal things, second. But we have to stay on top of those things and continue to move them forward.
Man, that's interesting that you're talking about that. That was the last thing I thought you would ever bring up in your field, your social media. But I guess I wasn't thinking about that. But that's so interesting that that you did bring that up and talking about how that is affecting your work when your customers want certain, I guess cool, the inside to look a certain way so that people will take pictures. And then people said, hey, that's really interesting that you brought that up. I thought you were gonna stay on the codes and stuff a little more, but you went no. But that's
well, the codes are boring. People like the visuals.
That's true. That's true.
And what we do in design is a very visual industry.
Beautiful
So that's how it's relevant to what we do. The code and life safety stuff is very important, and as a licensed design professional in the state of Texas, that's our number one responsibility, and the clients don't always want to hear that.
No.
Because it's about public health, safety, and welfare, and making sure that any building that the public occupies is safe and habitable and meets all those requirements. The challenge is doing all those things and making it beautiful.
And making it beautiful. Yeah. That's what I was asking you. Does that gets in the way sometimes?
Not if you know what you're doing.
Okay.
You solve those problems. I joke that our number one obligation is public health, safety, and welfare. Make the building safe. Number two is keep the water out, as the architect, because and then number three, we can really start making it pretty. But that's really not a sequential process. We have to do all those three things in synchrony.
Yeah.
Those things have to be. You have to do all three together to make the project successful.
Okay.
So
I love it. So be in the know. Everything. You just opened my eyes to even more. Now the fourth one is determination. Now managing your time, managing your finances, and being in the know. Those are all good things. But another thing we want to add on there is determination to actually get those done. Because let's say if you're really good at your craft, but your time management is starting to suck, so you go over your budget, right? And then you're not up to your social media platform, and all these things are starting to hurt your business. But you were so focused on being good at your craft. That's when the determination to learn more, to use these things, to go out and learn, or get somebody in. Let me go back a little bit. So when we're talking about their finances, you don't always have to be an expert in it, but we want you to have it. We want you to keep it in the forefront of your mind. You know, a good leader will always delegate to where he's whatever and stay in his lane. You know, I think Bill Gates said it best when he said, I don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. I hire them to tell me what to do. And so that kind of falls into everything we're talking about. So we want you to just keep it in the forefront of the mind, but you should not try to take these on as and be a professional in each one of these things. Form strong partnerships, you know, and all these things have to do with determination, because when times get tough and then all your attention was focused on this one area, now you got to be determined to, hey, I got to take some attention away from that and be focused more on this other area. So what kind of ideas have you had about determination through your years?
Well, you're right. You can't have you can't be a quitter.
No.
You have to be willing to stick to it, put in the long hours, and I think the point that you just made that I think is critical is know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And be humble enough to admit that, and find people who can strengthen your weaknesses. And to your point, you need to, as the business owner, understand the financial concepts and
yes.
cash flow and credit and those things. But you don't have to be the one doing the books, writing the checks. And I've got a contract bookkeeper who helps us
Me
with
too,
that.
yeah.
We've got a CPA that we consult with on big decisions, financial decisions, and planning and putting things in place like IRA benefits for our employees. And so we utilize those outside resources, you know, graphic designers, we are designers ourselves, but we're good with space.
Yes.
We're good with building materials, with lighting, with finishes. When it comes down to graphics and media, that's not our expertise. So we know where to draw the line, and we know where to get outside help to bring in for things like logos and graphics, and we'll work with our clients, graphic designers, or we'll bring in our own consultants that we've worked with. We have MEP engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers that we work with, where depending on our level of involvement in the project, we will bring in those third parties, or we'll work with our clients' other existing consultants who they have relationships with to work as a team to get their project done. Food service equipment. We understand your operational workflows as restaurant experts, which is mostly what we do. We will design the workflow of your kitchen, but we're not the guys to specify the latest convection oven or grill and range technology, or even your specific POS systems and for the point of sale and how the order gets from the wait staff to the kitchen, whether they're using digital devices now with a phone or an iPad that they enter orders on, or whether it's an old school, write it on a pad and stick it in the line in the kitchen. And we have clients that do both, or not the same client that does both, but some clients do it one way, some clients do it another. And the key is understanding how our client's operation works, and asking all those questions up front, gaining an understanding of their business, so we can design in the most ideal way to make their operation successful.
Oh, that sounds exactly what we kind of do. We build from their business goals and coming back, and so you have to integrate that, and not just a website. So that's very interesting. Now you guys are asking, okay, you guys got off on determination. We were talking about determination, but we're going a little deeper in understanding that if you're focused all over here and just trying to be the master of your craft, which isn't bad, you're going to miss all this other stuff, and that will over time get you down, and then you have to come back. But if you keep it at the forefront, okay, I at least need to know a little bit about this stuff, you won't have to use as much determination when you get down. So that's why we're kind of going out there. We went entrepreneur talk.
Sorry,
I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Sorry if I went down a rabbit hole.
No. I knew exactly what you're talking about. You're trying to prevent those for the shortcomings that were coming. So I knew exactly what you were talking about. And so the next one is the fear of failure. I think from the entrepreneur standpoint, you have to be able to cope with success and failure. And they're sometimes interchangeable, because something that you may think is a failure will actually turn out to be a success in a different area. But the fear of failure stops a lot of us. And most of the time, it's usually our own self-doubt or our own fears or things that's holding us up. So I've been in business for about 6 years now, and you still deal with certain things. I told you not to turn off your ringer, and my ringer came on. But no, the fear of failure is very important. As far as fears and things that come up mentally, what kind of share with us? Did you have any? Or?
Well, I think early on there was certainly the fear that will I be able to sustain this? Will I have enough work? Will I be able to generate new business? And to some extent, that's still an issue. There's,
yes.
We have to stay on top of competition. There's a lot of competitors in the market, and we try to differentiate ourselves by knowing what we're good at. I touched on that, knowing what we're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, there's I would say, as far as failures, sometimes if you don't get a project, you feel like that's a failure. If you lose out, we get proposals on a lot of jobs, and we lose out to other architects, other designers, or pre-existing relationships, or sometimes we're working. We've had clients we've done several projects for, but they change their project delivery method and hand things over to someone else who brings in new consultants, and not necessarily through any actual failure in our delivery on the project, but because of internal structural changes on the other side, we have missed out on opportunities. And so lost opportunities sometimes feel like failures, and there's that fear of not getting to do those, or if we had that opportunity, how would it have been? But you got to kind of put those things behind you
gotta keep going
and move forward and look for the next opportunity and make it a success.
I agree. I like how you actually told us what we should do about that too. Not just told the problem, but you actually added a solution. As far as you got to look past that stuff, guys, because it's going to be both. It's going to always be both. But you have to realize what your why and why you started to do this, and then also believe in yourself. We've worked in. You should, if you're an entrepreneur, you should have some type of skill set that you're always getting better. And it's every time you get 1% better, then that should give you a little more strength to go on. And you look back and you're like, okay, I may have lost out on this job, but I can go out and get another one. We got this reserve because you did your finances. You worried about your finances, so he's not too worried about that. And so it all that stuff accumulates to where it gives you enough strength to fight your fears. It should, So and then also being around like-minded people, like-minded entrepreneurs who kind of share the struggle with you too. It's good to kind of talk. And I have an awesome wife too. I don't know about everybody else, but I have an awesome wife who's been here with me since the beginning. So she helps me a lot.
It definitely helps.
She helps me a lot too. But so just to recap about the 5 things that we wanted you to just keep in front of your mind is finances, time management, being in the know, determination, and the fear of failure, guys. We want you guys to be successful in whatever you're doing, entrepreneurship, but there's another side to just being the best at what you do as far as the business, and you have to keep all sides in the know, in the forefront. Now we get to the point where I asked Matthew, some questions about his business, about who he is, and about what the future is going to hold for MSC Designs. What the reason for starting, and I guess some of this stuff we kind of went over.
We touched on that a little bit, yeah. But really, when you get into the reason, as a creative person, when I was working for those larger firms, I had, I got into this business to design, to create things. As you know, as a kid, I played with Legos and Lincoln Logs, and my dad and I built things, and I took wood shop in 7th grade, and I was always creative. I took 4 years of art in high school. I liked to draw and those kinds of things. So when I decided to major in architecture, that decided that was my career path, I knew it was because I wanted to create things. And after working for other firms for a while, I had been pigeonholed as a project manager, as someone who, and it had to do with me being well organized and managing my time and other people's time well. But because of that, I was not being given the design opportunities that I really wanted and that I really craved and hungered for to be creatively satisfied in my career. And when the opportunity for that first Glorious project came along, I saw that as an opportunity to seize that creative opportunity, as well as hopefully bring it in and solve a problem within my existing company. But when it didn't work out, the second part didn't work out, the first part did. And I've been very creatively satisfied with what I do ever since. Now, I still have to use those organizational skills. I still have to use those time management skills and things. But the main reason that I started my own business was to have more creative control over what I do. And I actually kept a little journal as I was considering, as I was moonlighting those projects and considering taking the leap. I asked myself the question, why do I want to do this?
Oh, that's good.
And my answer was that if I could have more creative control and more design input in the projects, make at least as much money as I was making working for other people at the time, and hopefully adjusted for inflation, that's still true. Have more time to spend with my family, because at the time I started the business. My wife was pregnant with our first child. She's 15 now. So, and actually it was, but when I started moonlighting the projects, so when my children were younger, it was important to me to be able to be involved in their things, and keeping the business small and from home allowed me a lot of flexibility and a lot of time to do that. And then the fourth thing I want to do is have more time to pursue my personal interest. I like classic cars, and that's kind of my hobby. And that's the one thing that I really was not, that always takes the back burner to everything else. But I still get the old convertible out of the garage every now and again. And
go cruising.
But everything else has held up. And now, the kids are older. They're 11 and 15. And the time has come, to grow things to a different level, and that's kind of where we're moving out of the home office a few years ago was the first step in that, and growing the staff and stepping up marketing efforts and increasing the business.
That's a beautiful why. Those are beautiful reasons why to start a business. And the next one is, do you have experience in the field? We already know that.
I think we covered that.
Yes. Now, what problem does your business solve? What's your unique problem that you solved as far as why someone would pick you for a project, why a company would pick you for a project versus another?
I touched on this a little bit about the life safety and the code issues, the due diligence. We look up front at what are all the potential pitfalls on the project. We try to answer all those questions on the front end and do the due diligence on the front end, so that we can move seamlessly through the project and not have problems on the back end. Because there's a lot of our competitors who maybe don't have our credentials. They're design studios, branding studios, and they market themselves as being able to do your branding, your menu, your name, your concept, as well as your space planning, as well as your operations, and some of them have some success at doing that, but from what I've seen, we are much better. You're much better hiring a licensed design professional, architect, at least an interior designer, who really understands the codes, understands the regulations, understands how to get projects permitted through planning and zoning. We were involved recently in a project that they were working with an interior designer that never contacted the city at the front end of the project, and got to the back end and realized they were going to have all these P&Z changes for these exterior changes to the building, and they brought us in to help get through that process, and we successfully got that done for them. But we wish we had been engaged on the front end, because it becomes a less positive experience for the client, in that we appear to be an added cost or an added expense, although we really should have been built into it from the beginning. So when we do get engaged from the very beginning with our clients, we solve the code issues. We do the code due diligence. We find out if we've got to go through planning and zoning. Do we have enough parking? You know, are those things there? You know, a lot of people think that just because a restaurant space has been a restaurant for 20 years and it's been vacant for 6 months, that they're going to go in and open back up as a restaurant. But
that's what I think.
But that restaurant was permitted 20 years ago, and it may not be up to current standards. The restrooms may not meet current handicapped accessibility. If you want to add a patio and put a roof over it or something, you may not have enough parking to do that. And so we make sure and address all those issues up front, and then proceed with the design. And we start space planning, you know, from the get-go, but we make sure that before we get to, you know, beyond schematic design, that we have the majority of those questions answered. And we also solve the operational workflows of restaurants better than a lot of people. When you think about the fact that you don't want customer traffic and staff traffic converging, you know, someone on the way to the restrooms and a guy comes out of the door to the kitchen with a tray full of food, that's not a good scenario. And everybody's probably been in a restaurant that has that, and you narrowly dodged the collision or worse. And so just simple things like that. But acoustics, the sound in restaurants, you know, a lot of noisy restaurants out there, and we do our best to at least advise clients on the solutions. Sometimes they'll take our advice and sometimes they don't. But you know, we always recommend the best design solution. Ultimately, it's their project, their budget, their decision, unless it's a matter of life safety or something that would compromise our license. So.
Man, that's interesting that you go that extra mile. I didn't even think that you guys are involved in the operations of it for the design, but I can see that clear as day now. Why wouldn't you? As far as, I mean, not the operation, but the workflow. Yeah. The workflow. That's very interesting.
Well, you know, we look at kitchens as little factories. You've got receiving on one end and shipping on the other. You've got your ingredients and your dry goods, your to-go boxes, all that stuff coming in the back door, and then it all has to go through a process where it gets prepped, it gets cooked, it gets prepared, it comes out the expo line. You've got to bring them beverages. And that's shipping is where, you know, that expo line where everything comes out. And we work with clients who have, you know, full service operations like Gloria's. We also work with Dillo's Primo Quesadillas, who's got drive-through operations.
Oh yeah.
And we've worked with Luna Grill, Mediterranean, but they're a fast casual counter service concept. So we work with a wide variety of restaurants.
Oh, wow.
And it's different solutions for different types of operations, and you've got to take those things into account.
Man. That's why you're going to be the best. That's why you are the best. Okay, so I got next one. What are some of your fears as an entrepreneur? Do you have any? What?
Well, you know, where's that next project coming from? Sometimes we've touched on that. You know, hopefully it's from the steady client relationships that we've built, and we keep that steady flow. You know, like Gloria's, like Dilla's, that we've done multiple projects for, Luna Grill as well. But we've done some one-offs, and sometimes they're just not clients who are aggressively developing or opening multiple locations, and getting the word out there to other clients who are working on multiple locations. Those are our ideal client is a not necessarily a prototypical restaurant, but a multi-unit operator who has either multiple locations of the same concept, or
they want to
or multiple concepts that they want to develop. But going back to your question about fears, you know, the retaining staff and keeping good people.
Oh,
keeping
man.
a good team in a market that's very competitive.
Yes.
Finding good people.
Finding
you know, I don't know.
keeping. Oh my gosh.
You know, are you going to find the right person for the job? And we've been very blessed that we've got a good team, and everybody's been working together for a while now. And let's see.
I mean,
you know,
that's good.
cash flow, you know, is always an issue.
Cash flow.
You know, especially when you're spending money on those marketing expenses and
Yes.
things, and you know, keeping up with the projects and you know, taking time away from to handle those important internal tasks. You know, the financial management, the marketing, the employee policy manual, things of those nature. That take time away from servicing the clients, but are important to have in place for the long-term growth of the business.
Man, I love it. I had to amen you on the finding good people, because teams, oh my gosh, to go to another level, you got to have a good team, but it's really hard to sometimes find good people that kind of see the vision. And that's why I had to learn, one of the things I had to learn is to delegate. Like, look at somebody, find out where they're supposed to be. Don't try to put them everywhere, Chris. You try to put them in this one area. So I had to take a break on that. Yes, finding good people is really hard. Let's you've really answered most of our questions. But this year's business goals. What are you looking to accomplish as far as your business growth, revenue? What type?
I would say growth, both in client base and diversity of
Okay.
clients, as well as revenue growth that would be associated with taking on those new projects and clients, and potentially adding some new staff, assuming that the growth in business will support it, and. You know, I think our next play would be an experienced interior designer to boost the interior side of what we do.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's, I guess those three things are enough.
Yeah, that is enough. Now, as far as the growth and
You've
revenue,
got to set realistic and attainable goals.
yes, you do,
So,
and then you have to bring it back to action.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm glad you came back. What's the next play? I'm gonna use that from now on. I'm gonna say our next play is. I'm gonna use that. I like that. Now, okay, so this is the last one. So did you think about sell or passing down this company when you started it? What's the exit strategy?
Well, you know, I really didn't. I have in recent, you know, after 14 years, I have thought about that. But I would say that when I started it, it was about lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's effectively three types of entrepreneurial businesses. There's the entrepreneurial growth business that's being developed to be sold for profit and then go on and develop the next entrepreneurial venture. There's the lifestyle business that's about doing what you want to do to support the way you want to live and to be satisfied in your career roles. And I think that's the category I fall into. And then there's, of course, what I think is called the legacy business, where you're building something to pass down either to your family or to other members of the business, your other team members who you've brought on. And that, although we started as a lifestyle business, it could evolve into a legacy business. I don't foresee there being a sale. There could be a potentially a merger or something like that if the right design partnership came along with another architect, interior designer, to join forces and build upon our strengths. That would allow, you know, be for the good of both sides, mutual benefit of both businesses or business owners. You know, then I could see doing something like that. My daughter does have some interest in design, but it's a little early to tell whether you know I'll be passing the reins on to her. So we'll see after she graduates high school where she goes, what direction she's headed in, and in the meantime we'll keep going the way we are.
Now, before we end, I want to ask this. So, let's say if one of your kids wasn't in the field of architecture, could you still pass them down? They couldn't run the company and still have. Do you think that would be possible or no?
Potentially, but this is a business where you have to have a passion for
Okay.
what you're doing.
Okay.
You have to, and my son's interest are music. He
that's
fantasized
good. I
about
love
being a
music
rock
too.
star
Oh,
drummer,
yeah.
and he's quite good, and maybe he'll do it.
Oh, that's good.
But he's also very intelligent as well. So, and I think he's got the potential to run any kind of business he wants to run.
Yeah.
But I don't want to force
No.
my dream and my business upon them. So, when it comes time for retirement, it would probably be, or as we look out over the next 20 years, getting to that point, I would either be looking at, finding that right partnership, that merger,
That makes
that
sense.
acquisition kind of thing to let my team become a part of something bigger and better eventually, or potentially, if the passion is there with one of my children, to pass it on down to them. But I don't. Sorry, I don't have a clearly defined answer for that one. But I have given it some thought. But hopefully, that's not a decision we have to make anytime soon. So
No. We just want to know from an entrepreneur, because you're a successful entrepreneur, we just want to have questions to where most of our people are either in their first to third year or wanting to start. So they really want to hear, what we have and what we're going through. So everything you said was perfect. I mean, it was really perfect. Just trying to pick our brains a little bit, But no, this has been the Business Mind Show. Let's go over your contact information. How can people get in contact with you?
Our website is mscarchitecture.com. You can reach us by phone at 469-855-3800. And we are on Instagram and Facebook as well as LinkedIn. So look up MSC Design and you will find us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like I said, their work is amazing. I mean, this is amazing, high-end stuff. And you guys are right down the hall. So glad that we got to hook up after, bumping in each other for a while and trying to get it in, but we're both busy.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Chris.
Of course, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it. Guys, this has been the Business Mind Show. Of course, you can check us out at meekmind.com. You can check out this show on equalizernetwork.com. And leave your comments, leave your reviews, and we're always happy to contact. And of course, contact Mr. Matthew if you guys want his services as well. This has been the Business Mind Show. Thanks, guys.